My message is the end game is coming. It's going to be difficult, but it will be cathartic. Difficult but cathartic and positive in the end. It's going to be a real renaissance for humanity.
You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
Geopolitical tensions are surging, and with every missile fired, the U.S. dollar's dominance inches closer to its endgame. But here's the kicker. While most are scrambling for safe haven currencies like the yen or the Swiss franc, the real story could be silver. Yes, silver, the underdog of precious metals, might just be poised to reclaim its throne as real money. Stick around because in today's video, we're breaking down why experts like Rafi Faber believe the dollar's collapse is inevitable and why silver is set to rise from the ashes as the world's next true currency. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming.
Yeah, they can. I just want to reframe or rephrase that a little bit. It's not that so much that we've gone onto a new system called fiat, and therefore that gives the government power. I mean, what happened was the U.S. was an enormous power, a trustworthy and good power until the 1930s and 40s. And with that trust, they were able to take the dollar, which is still gold and was much more gold back then, and tell everyone to use it. And once everyone started using it, because they had conquered Europe basically through World War II, and they'd conquered Russia also. Well, they still had a Cold War to fight, but basically they were much stronger. Then once you have everyone using the currency and you get them on that system, then you can start inflating. It's not like you take a vote and you ask your people, do you want to have a gold standard or a fiat system? And they're like, fiat. And then we're like, no, that's the wrong choice. That's not how it happens. Everything starts with gold and silver. And then when the government sees that it has the power to inflate, it will, right? And so it did. So it's not so much that we have to end this system as we have to end the inflationary part of the system and return to gold, which still is on the Fed's balance sheet. It's still there. It's only about 8% of the dollar now. But assuming there's gold in Fort Knox, which I assume there is, and I can't prove that. But this is still a hangover from a gold dollar that's heavily inflated and with much of its value blown up literally in the bombs that are falling on my town.
As missiles fly across the Middle East, the global financial markets are reacting, and not in the way you might expect. Over the weekend, Israel and Hezbollah exchanged their most significant volley of missiles in over a decade, sending shockwaves through the markets. The result? A spike in oil prices and a scramble towards safe haven currencies like the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc. But while these currencies are gaining strength, there's a bigger picture at play. A brewing storm that could topple the U.S. dollar from its pedestal. Geopolitical conflicts like this aren't just regional skirmishes. They have global implications. Every flare-up sends ripples to the financial markets, affecting everything from oil prices to currency values. And as these tensions rise, the fragility of the dollar becomes increasingly apparent. With the U.S. deeply entrenched in global conflicts, both directly and indirectly, the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency is being tested. As the world seeks safer assets, the stage is being set for silver to shine once again, not just as a commodity, but as a form of money that transcends borders and crises. This isn't just speculation. The recent climb in safe haven currencies underscores a critical point. Investors are losing faith in fiat currencies, and they're looking for something more solid, something real. Silver, with its long history as a reliable store of value, could be the answer. As we dive deeper into this unfolding scenario, it's clear that the real geopolitical catalyst might not just be oil or regional power struggles, but a fundamental shift in what the world recognizes as true money.
Pray. So that's what she did. And when I arrived, she was okay. She was fine. I didn't even know that my car was hit at the time. I just saw the water spraying in the street. But everything's okay. Everything's fine. My next door neighbor, his house was completely sprayed with bullets, shrapnel bullets, and all of his windows were blown out. But he was fine. He was just sitting there smoking on his front porch. So it was a surreal moment, and everything's okay though. That was my experience. And you want to know why the dollar is responsible for this. So I think this is something that everyone can agree on, no matter what side of this war you're on. And you can also understand that I have to root for my side. This is how war sucks you in, because the other side really is trying to kill me, and I don't want to be killed. So I have to root for my side of the war, even though I know this is all just a product of inflation. Why is it? Because America the United States wants to keep its defense industry greased, right? And so in case there's a war or a major conflict, they don't have to restart the factories and get everything mobilized. So they want to keep it going. So they need someone to sell weapons to. So they use us because we've become dependent since 1967. And on the other side, you have Iran and its proxies and Egypt, which feeds weapons to Hamas. Hamas is really an Egyptian proxy. And even though we have a peace treaty with them, we're not really at peace with them. They still want us dead, it seems. So they give money to Egypt, and they give money in different indirect ways to Iran, and that those dollars end up buying weapons and shooting at us, and then we end up buying weapons from the United States with the U.S. aid dollars, monopoly money that they give us, and then it goes to stimulate the U.S. defense industry. So it's just dollars versus dollars, and we're stuck in the middle of it. Ideally, when the dollar dies, there are no more American weapons being sent either to us or to our enemies, and then we're on our own, which most Israelis would find pretty scary. But I just retort that the last war that Israel won was without any American aid, a single dollar of it in 1967. That started after we became the big victors in that war, and then we were confirmed to be the big power in the region. And then after we won, the U.S. kind of, marked its territory by making us a defense colony of theirs. So I'm rooting for the dollar to die so we can fight our own war, so we don't have to involve any American taxpayers in it, which I resent, and I'm sure most American taxpayers resent in America for good reason. And let's just all mind our own business and be allies and friends like George Washington proposed.
The U.S. dollar has long been seen as the bedrock of global finance, but beneath the surface, cracks are starting to show. Recently, the U.S. dollar index made a modest climb, a sign that investors still see it as a safe haven in times of crisis. But don't be fooled, this surge is masking a deeper instability. Just last week, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell hinted at possible rate cuts in the near future. On the surface, this might seem like a move to support the economy, but in reality, it's a sign of how fragile the dollar's position has become. When the world's most powerful central bank starts to waver, it sends a clear message. All is not well with the dollar. Rate cuts can temporarily boost the economy, but they also weaken the currency in the long run, especially when the country's debt is soaring. The dollar's strength, as it stands today, is built on a shaky foundation of ever-increasing debt and relentless money printing. The more dollars that flood the system, the less each one is worth, and the closer we come to a tipping point. Meanwhile, other currencies like the euro and the Australian dollar are showing signs of weakness against the dollar, but this isn't because the dollar is inherently strong. It's because the global financial system is losing faith in all fiat currencies. And as faith in the dollar fades, where will investors turn next? Silver, with its inherent value and historical role as money, is starting to look like a more attractive option. As the dollar's fragility becomes more apparent, the case for silver strengthens. We are on the brink of a significant shift, one where silver could emerge as a key player in a new financial era.
Morning prayers, and I was learning with the guy I learn with every morning, and we hear the sirens. So I lazily walk into the it's called the mamad here. Modern buildings have this fortified concrete room, and so I just kind of lazily walked into it, and usually we hear distant booms after that, but this time I heard a very, very close one that shook the ground, and it made my heart skip a beat. and I didn't have my phone on me, so I figured that I really should get home and walk home and make sure my wife is still alive. uh, and my kids too are with my in-laws who are here in an Airbnb, just a block away from where I live. And I get onto my street and I see the water main of my neighbor just spraying water into the street, and I'm just kind of dumbfounded. So it turns out that there were two bombs. One hit a block away from my street, and that destroyed completely two houses, just blew them out, blew them apart. And I can't believe nobody was killed. There was one guy who was in the hospital in moderate condition, but everybody else was okay. And on my street, that was an explosive bomb, but Hezbollah doesn't only send explosive bombs, they send shrapnel bombs, which are basically just packed with ball bearings and other pieces of metal that when they hit, they don't explode so much as they just spray shrapnel everywhere. And that was the one on my block, I counted the steps, about 40 steps away from my house. And that's pretty amazing, because the city that I live, even though there's not a lot of people, it's a pretty large city. So the chances that a missile would hit so close to my house are pretty slim. But that actually happened, and my car was sprayed with shrapnel, has about 7 or 8 bullet wounds, and the window was broken, shattered, and I had a flat tire, and a piece of shrapnel went into my bedroom, broke my bedroom window, and my wife was on the ground floor. So we don't have one of those safe rooms. So our procedure is we just go to the first floor into the middle of the house, far away from windows and walls, and just sit down and hope.
History has a way of repeating itself, especially in the world of finance. Every major financial crisis has revealed one undeniable truth. Fiat currencies are fragile, and when they fail, people inevitably turn to hard assets like gold and silver. Let's take a trip back in time to understand how these cycles of currency collapse and the resurgence of precious metals have played out. In the 1970s, the world witnessed the collapse of the Bretton Woods system, where the US dollar was no longer pegged to gold. This led to rampant inflation and a loss of confidence in the dollar. During that period, silver prices surged as people sought refuge in tangible assets. Fast forward to the 2008 financial crisis, and we see a similar pattern: an overextended financial system, a collapse in confidence, and a renewed interest in precious metals as a hedge against uncertainty. But it's not just about these two events. Throughout history, whenever a major currency faces a crisis, whether it's the German hyperinflation of the 1920s or the more recent currency collapses in places like Venezuela and Zimbabwe, precious metals have always served as a reliable store of value. Silver, in particular, has a long history as a form of money, outlasting numerous fiat currencies that have come and gone. Today, we stand at the precipice of another potential collapse. The signs are all there: rising debt, geopolitical tensions, and weakening global confidence in fiat currencies. If history is any guide, we know what comes next: a flight to safety in assets that have intrinsic value, like silver. As the dollar's fragility becomes more evident, it's not hard to imagine a scenario where silver once again plays a central role in the global financial system. The past is prologue, and the resurgence of silver may be closer than we think.
Yeah, I think there's going to be one, March 2020 style pullback, and that's a pullback in dollar terms. It's not a pullback in commodity terms, which you saw in 2020 was if you compare gold to commodities versus gold versus other commodities, the all-time high was in March 2020 when gold hit 1450, and that's when the mining stocks were really tanking, and people's portfolios, including my own that is heavy on mining stocks, really took a crazy beating, and we were having heart palpitations. And that could happen again, because there's going to be one more deflationary crash when it could be when the reverse repos run out or shortly after that. and we're going to have banking crises all over. And then it's going to take the Fed some amount of time, not much time, to come in and say, okay, we'll print $6-7 trillion, and then start doing it. But up to the time when they actually decide to do that or actually start doing it, gold is probably going to fall in dollar terms. And I'm not suggesting that anyone sell it now and then buy it at that dip and then trade it. You could, but to imagine that you'll be able to, and without panicking and time it just right, it's a little hubristic if you're going to try to do that. Maybe you could do it with a small amount of your capital, but I wouldn't try to do that and sell all your gold now and then buy it back at that point. It's much safer just to keep in mind that it's probably going to happen, because before hyperinflation is really a struggle between hyperdeflation and the central bank trying to exit that, which forces the liquidation of all the debt and the end of the banking system, which is going to happen in the hyperinflationary path instead. But they put it off in time with the inflationary strategy. The question really is the next printing round going to be the end and the hyperinflation, the end of the dollar? And I think it will be, because
now that we've set the stage with the geopolitical turmoil and the dollar's weakening foundation, it's time to dive into what the experts are saying. Enter Rafi Faber, a well-respected voice in the world of precious metals and a keen observer of global economic trends. Faber has been vocal about his belief that silver is on the cusp of a massive resurgence, and his reasoning is deeply rooted in the flaws of the current financial system. Faber argues that the unprecedented levels of debt, combined with the relentless printing of fiat money, have created a ticking time bomb. He sees silver not just as an investment, but as a lifeline, a return to a sound monetary system that could protect wealth in an era of collapsing fiat currencies. According to Faber, the world is sleepwalking into a financial disaster, one that will make the previous crises look like minor hiccups. And in this impending scenario, silver is not just a hedge, it's a necessity. In a recent interview, Faber laid out his case. As central banks around the world continue to debase their currencies, silver, with its intrinsic value and historical role as money, will inevitably rise. He points to the increasing disconnect between the paper price of silver and the actual physical demand as a sign that the market is severely underestimating its true value. Faber believes that when the dollar finally falters, silver will be one of the few assets standing tall. So, why should we listen to Faber? His track record speaks for itself. He's been ahead of the curve in predicting market movements, and his analysis is grounded in a deep understanding of both history and economics. As the global financial system inches closer to a tipping point, Faber's insights are more relevant than ever. If he's right, and the signs suggest he is, then silver could soon be playing a pivotal role in a new financial order.
Look, it's liberty versus tyranny. That's what it is, and we've seen what tyranny can do. They'll use democratic language. They'll use liberty language. We have to maintain health and whatever other keywords that they'll talk about. But it's really coming down to the single issue. We can talk about libertarian values and sound money, and while it's true that sound money would cure these problems, and inflation eventually leads to the incredible corruption of government to the point where they will take everything from you because they get addicted to their own inflation, and therefore they have to come after you for everything. It's really it's all coming down to our most basic freedoms now. So I think that's what RFK is realizing, that if Team Blue wins this time, our most basic freedoms are going to be taken. So, we could talk about Austrian economics, talk about Rothbard, Lysander Spooner, and, well, why support Trump when he's clearly not libertarian. He does not understand money. Neither does RFK. He doesn't understand what gold really is. He doesn't understand that the government at this point can't just stop inflation. If the government stopped spending exponentially, you'd have the same banking crisis that you had in 2008. It has to keep spending because if it's just simple transitive property, it's if the dollar is mostly debt, if you don't expand the debt, then you don't expand the money supply. If you don't expand the money supply, you can't pay back the debt. It's just a loop, and it has to keep going higher and higher and faster and faster. So there is no way that Trump nor RFK can stop the financial calamity from happening. That was already baked into the cake since 1971 or even 1933, if you want to argue that far. There's no way to stop it. But what can be stopped is the direct assault on what remains of our liberty, and that's what could be very important here. I'm not voting. I don't, I'm not part of the country anymore. If I happen to get an absentee ballot, I'll fill it out for Trump. I think I'm technically a voter in Florida. I don't know how important that is because I don't think Florida is really a swing state anymore. So I don't think it matters if I vote or not. But look, bottom line, we're going to go into this, into the end of the dollar, and it's going to be very disruptive for the division of labor, and we're going to have to reorganize the economy and all of the inflated crap that is infecting everything in the education system, in the defense system, in the health system. All of that is going to go away. And all of the nonsense, the crazy nonsense that you hear from every sector of the economy is going to die out because there will be no money to fund BS if the dollar doesn't work. And people are going to have to actually work on real things instead of their fantasies of destroying what remains of reality. So the question really is, do you want to go into the end of the dollar being able to say things without being arrested? Or do you not mind losing whatever remains of your freedom? And I think the answer is clear. So I agree with RFK. I think Trump has to win. It's not like if he doesn't win, it'll be the end, and then the end game's going to come and rescue everyone in that sense anyway. But you want to hold on to what remains of the goodness. It's not much, and it'll get through. You'll be able to get through the end game a little bit cleaner.
As we delve deeper into the unfolding economic landscape, it becomes increasingly clear that we're heading toward a monumental shift, one that could redefine the global financial system as we know it. The warning signs are all around us. Skyrocketing national debts, central banks stretched to their limits, and a world economy teetering on the brink of another major recession. This is more than just a cyclical downturn. We're looking at the potential for a systemic collapse that could rival or even surpass the financial crises of the past. At the heart of this impending crisis is the unsustainable nature of our current financial system. Governments worldwide have been propping up their economies with endless money printing, driving inflation and eroding the value of their currencies. This can't go on forever. At some point, the system will break, and when it does, those who haven't prepared will be left scrambling. This isn't fear-mongering. This is the reality we've seen play out time and time again throughout history. So what happens when the dollar finally buckles under the weight of its own excess? What happens when central banks can no longer print their way out of trouble? This is where silver comes into play. In a world where fiat currencies are losing their value at an alarming rate, silver stands out as a beacon of stability. Its historical role as money, coupled with its intrinsic value, makes it a prime candidate to serve as a cornerstone of a new financial order. But make no mistake, this transition won't be smooth. The collapse of a currency as dominant as the US dollar will have far-reaching consequences, impacting everything from global trade to individual savings. We could see a period of intense volatility, where traditional assets like stocks and bonds plummet, and precious metals like silver skyrocket in value. In this environment, silver isn't just a safe haven, It could become the very foundation of a new economic system. For those who see the writing on the wall, now is the time to act. As the crisis unfolds, silver's role will shift from being a mere investment to becoming a critical asset for preserving wealth. And as we move closer to this inevitable reckoning, the case for silver has never been stronger.
Well, I commented on this a few times on the Endgame Investor on Substack, and I think Nouriel Roubini, they called him Dr. Doom. He's a mainstream Keynesian type economist, but sometimes he has some good takes, and he has decent instincts. And he was talking about activist treasury issuance. He gives it another three-letter acronym, ATI. That's okay. So he makes up another term, and now he can coin it and then sell his economist brand. So whatever, activist treasury issuance. He's talking about the massive issuance of treasury bills, short-term debt, and he's saying it's not fair that the treasury is issuing so much short-term debt because that is a de facto way to print money and transfer reserves into the monetary system by selling treasury bills, and then the government takes that money from the bank's reserves and then spends it into the system by funding wars. That's true. However, it's not that the Treasury can just print money. They need dollars to draw from. It's not like when the Treasury sells a bond, it's not like new dollars are coming out into the system unless the Fed buys them, indirectly, which they're not doing now. So those dollars that the Treasury bills are being bought with are being drawn from somewhere. It's not the Treasury printing the money, right? It's coming from the reverse repo facility, and that is all. Those are all the dollars that were printed in 2020 and 2021 that couldn't make it into the banking system, but now they are. And it seems that by October, I'm hoping by October, it could be delayed because it's been delayed it's excruciating that they still exist, these things. There's about 350 billion of them left now. But from the Treasury's schedule of T-bill sales and auctions, hopefully they will be drained by October. And once they are, then there's no more new money coming in to the system. There is sort of QE going on, but it's like latent, delayed, leftover QE. So it's not official, but it's happening. And that's why the stock market is at an all-time high, and it looks like the economy is not crashing. That's the reason. So what happens when these things finally run out? Well, then the money supply is going to really start to fall fast, and then you're going to see the major Keynesian style crash that we all think of when we think of depression. And at the response to that is going to be the final printing run. In my opinion, the final one. You could argue maybe there's going to be another one, but we're going to have to wait another few years. But you know what? We're running out of time. You can see it in the politics. You can see it in the assault on the freedom of speech going global now. They had a trial run with the mysterious virus of unknown origin. Let's not speak any keywords. But now they're going for it. The arrest of the Telegram founder. They're going for Elon Musk, for Twitter, maybe the last bastion of free speech on social media. So we're really running out of time. Freedom of speech is really the last bastion of any liberty that we have left. And the crash is going to happen. The end game is going to happen whether or not we have free speech at the end of it. I'd rather go into it with free speech than without.
As we reach the climax of this unfolding story, it's time to face the reality of what lies ahead. The global financial system is on the brink of a transformation so profound that it will redefine how we understand money and wealth. The dollar, once the undisputed king of currencies, is nearing the end of its reign. The relentless printing, the soaring debts, and the geopolitical tensions have all set the stage for a dramatic fall. But in every crisis, there lies an opportunity. And for those who are prepared, silver could be that opportunity. Imagine a world where fiat currencies lose their value rapidly, where governments scramble to control the chaos, and where traditional assets like stocks and bonds offer no safe harbor. In this world, silver, with its historical legacy and intrinsic value, emerges not just as a safe haven, but as a cornerstone of a new financial system. This isn't just speculation. This is the natural progression of what happens when confidence in paper money collapses. As the dollar's collapse accelerates, silver will likely become the go-to asset for preserving and even growing wealth. Its limited supply, coupled with increasing demand from both investors and industry, will drive prices higher. But beyond its price, silver will serve a more fundamental role as real money, accepted and valued across borders and in times of crisis. This return to silver as a form of money could mark the beginning of a more stable and sustainable financial system, one that is not reliant on the whims of central banks and the endless printing of paper currency. The signs are clear. The end game for the dollar is not a question of if, but when. And when that moment comes, those holding silver will be in a position not just to survive the chaos, but to thrive in the new world that emerges. Now is the time to consider your position, because when the dust settles, silver could be the key to securing your financial future. As we wrap up, remember this isn't just about investing. It's about being prepared for the inevitable changes ahead. And if you haven't already, now might be the time to take a closer look at silver, not just as a commodity, but as the money of the future. Don't forget to subscribe to stay informed as this story unfolds. And remember, this is not financial advice, just a perspective grounded in the realities we see today. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, and let's face the future together.
Just globally, we're on the precipice of a nuclear war, it seems. And Ukraine has now invaded Russia. They're invading a nuclear power. Putin could start dropping bombs whenever he wants. I don't know if he will, and I think he knows that if he does, the planet could be destroyed. So maybe he won't. But at some point, who knows what he's going to do? I mean, a nuclear power is being invaded by Ukraine now with American weapons. This doesn't seem safe. So, in terms of what you said, the best thing to do is to buy gold and silver. Yes, it's not just about protecting your family and your wealth. That's an effect of it. It's a positive effect, but the point of doing that is to hasten the end and to get it coming as soon as possible. Because once the definition of a dead dollar is a dollar that can no longer be exchanged for gold and silver at all, and you do that by buying gold, right? By raising the exchange rate between the dollar and gold. So we want to see it just keep going up and up and up and up. Not because we want to have so many dollars in our portfolios that we can count and imagine how much we can buy with them, because in the end, the dollar isn't going to be worth anything, and you're going to be stuck with your ounces. And the ounces that you have will be able to buy the most during the end game, because the end game means that the amount of liquidity, real liquidity in the system is so low that prices in terms of that liquidity become so high that you can buy enormous amounts with even silver, with even a few coins of silver. So that's what we're looking at. We're really looking. Silver is going to be the ultimate bell ring at the end of this. We're looking for a 15-to-1 ratio, which is the natural monetary ratio. And once that returns, that means that that derivatives of gold and silver no longer work at all, which is why the 15-to-1 ratio returns.